I just want to do a quick intro to this video and let you know about my business, a little bit about it for this month. Don't forget to use Sanctified for the rest of this month to get $5 off your order, and starting on the 26th, don't forget to use the coupon code New Year to get free shipping on your orders. And with that out of the way, let's get into this knife selection. Sorry that this bag is a little tipsy. I think I'm just going to set it off to the side and just go over the order from highest price to lowest price, or around that, especially with the higher priced knives, is how I'm kind of going in this collection. But this is the Pull Force November one. I've had this knife for a few years, and overall I really do like this knife, especially for everyday carry. But in Bushcraft, I have really found to not like this knife, especially for its price point being considered. This knife is quite expensive, around $365, and overall for this knife, what you get out of it, I really would not recommend this knife. It's been an okay knife for Bushcraft. You can certainly press it into the roll, but like I said, for a dedicated bushcrafting knife, for this price point, I think you can do like so much better than this particular knife. Once again, in price order is the Bark River Knives Bushcrafter. This knife I really do like, and once again, it's been a knife that I've had and used and sworn by for a couple of years now, and overall I find this knife to be really great. I still don't know if I'd fully recommend this knife just for its price point, but definitely if you are looking at a semi-custom to custom knife in the $200 region, this is a knife that's very hard to go wrong with. Overall, its entire ergonomics, blade, just the whole design with this knife is just overall amazing. Like I said, the CPM 3V holds an edge forever. One thing I do want to quickly address, because I have gotten this in a few comments, and that is, would I recommend the Bark River Knives Bushcrafter 2.0, which is the updated version to this? And I would not. I have done some research on it. I have never technically handled one, but having actually handled this Bushcrafter and owned this Bushcrafter for a few years, I can say that I really dislike the 2.0, and that's, in case you guys don't know what the 2.0 is, that's just where they increase the size of the blade and the handle. And really, I think this handle blade ratio and size overall is perfect. I would not mess with this thing at all. And overall, like I was saying, I would recommend this knife if you're looking for a knife this expensive. If you're just looking for bushcrafting knives, there are some other options I'm going to pull out that I'd recommend over this because of the price point. But once again, for what it is extremely good. So now on to the LT Wright Camp Monk. So this is a newer acquisition of mine, and so far I have been using it and really liking it. I am a personal fan, and I know it doesn't show too much in a lot of this knife collection, but I really am a fan of the Nesmith design, and so getting this Camp Monk was really great. Overall, this whole design is very well executed on this knife. This one is the A2 version, so it has a pretty good edge, unlike the 01 that can kind of dull a bit fast, a lot like 1095. This one has the A2, so the edge retention is pretty good on it. Of course, not as good as either of these two, but pretty good overall. I will say one thing that I kind of dislike about this knife is I do wish its overall size was just a little bit larger, put up against the Bark River. That's roughly the Bark River size right there. You guys can kind of see this knife is smaller. The overall length on this is 7-something inches, and I kind of dislike that overall size. I wish it was just a little bigger. Generally, I don't normally say that because I'm a fan of smaller and smaller knives, but it is certainly a usable knife. But when you start to put gloves on, your hands will be a little bit cramped if you want them all to stay on that handle. But other than that, I found the knife to be very good. The sheath is pretty good as well, but overall, I would probably recommend this knife. Especially if you're looking for a neck knife, this is a very capable neck knife, especially of the tasks that it's meant to do. This full flat grind really helps it to process game animals, and so does the Nesmic design. The Nesmic design really allows you to choke up and easily arc the blade to help with skinning, gutting, just overall field dressing of game animals. As well, the full flat grind helps in processing of different like fruits and natural materials. So overall, I like this knife a lot as a neck knife. Just wish it was a little bigger. So that is pretty much my thoughts on this knife. Once again, I don't have a gigantic amount of time on it, but so far for what I have used it for, it has been very capable, and overall it has impressed me as a full flat grind. Another knife, this is one that I've absolutely loved over the years, and I think a lot of people, just about anyone that handles one of these, ends up loving them, and that is the Tops Fieldcraft by the Brothers of Bushcraft. Overall, I find this knife to be really great. If you're looking for a larger knife, which this certainly is, this is really towards the top of what I would consider for bushcrafting to be a good fieldcraft knife overall. But it certainly is a very good knife, and I've actually used this in a wide variety of situations, from peeling bark off of birch trees to even dressing squirrels. I find that it definitely doesn't love those two tasks because they are rather fine, but when pressed into just about any situation, this knife just performs, and that's something that I really love about this knife, and that's one of the reasons why it has not left the collection. I've had it for 3 years now, and overall it has proven itself to be an extremely capable field knife for bushcraft. A knife you guys have been seeing a lot of here of late, the Morakniv Garberg. This knife, admittedly, I got this a little bit late in the game, like after everyone else had gotten it, and this knife is highly recommended by a whole bunch of people, and it's still highly recommended by me. There are some people that don't quite like the price, but so far, really, I found this knife incredibly hard to beat for the price. It's actually, as far as design goes, it's slightly larger, but it's a lot like the Bushcrafter by Bark River Knives. This, of course, has a Scandi Vex on it, and this just has a normal Scandinavian grind on it. But other than that, it's extremely similar to this knife, but I think the handle is just a little bit better than this knife. I find that this handle's overall thickness is better, and with this one, my one complaint is that it narrows a lot down toward the very swell right here. Like, it will narrow very deep and then kind of swell out there. I kind of dislike how much it narrows down there, but this knife, it really feels great in the hand, and for the performance and especially price point being considered, I would highly recommend it. I forgot to say that I highly recommend this knife as well. If you can spring for it and you like the slightly larger knives around that 10-inch range, this one is, of course, extremely recommended. So now onto the Helle Eggen. This is one of my favorite bushcrafting knives, but it's not one of my recommended knives just because for me it has a lot of second kind of cool, especially this handle, and the ergonomics are extremely comfortable. This being said, because it is only a stick tang, it is not an extremely robust or sturdy knife. I've not done much batoning with it, and people who have do report that these handles break, and so that's a little bit of an unfortunate thing to them. But overall, for doing things like making tri-sticks, this is actually the video, or I actually did the tri-stick in the video, how to make a tri-stick with this knife, and so it's an extremely great carving knife. And if you're just going to be using knives for carving, then you might consider it, but overall it is not a recommended knife because of the fact that it's just a little too weak for what I would call a bushcrafting knife to be used for. Some people who are against batoning would probably love this knife. And once again, it has a lot of second kind of cool, at least for me, having this beautiful burl handle. It just looks absolutely gorgeous. But in my opinion, like I say, it's also kind of its downfall because that does make it weaker. So now getting into the Schrade SCF42D. This knife has been quite good for me. I have had some complaints. I've passed this knife around to a lot of different users, and I have gotten some complaints about the handle size. Some people say it's just a little bit too small. I personally like this handle to blade ratio a little bit more than the tops, because what I was always finding with the tops, the one fault or downfall to it is that the handle and blade length are so equal that you get like 4.3 something inches for the handle, and you also get like 4.3, maybe it's like 4.5, I think it's closer to 4.5 on the handle and 4.5 on the blade, but that still leaves you with a 4.5 inch blade. So though you get this really nice roomy handle, you also kind of get a shorter blade with this still near 10-inch package. And that's kind of what I liked about the Schrade, is you have a over 5-inch blade with a shorter handle. You can definitely see that this handle is quite smaller than the tops. I don't know how well you can see it, but it is about a 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit more than that, maybe 3/4 of an inch smaller, but it gives you that longer blade, and I find overall the batoning, or the batonability, with this knife is greater, and that was really the one thing that I constantly found lacking with the tops Fieldcraft. So this overall, especially price point being considered, does get a recommend. I found the 1095 steel in it to be at least up to par with things like the tops. I don't have like a gigantic amount of knives that use 1095, so I don't have a huge test bed for it, but things like the tops, it seems to hold its edge just as well as that. And like I said, especially price point being considered, I would definitely recommend it. So now on to the ESEE3. So this knife I actually got like on a super awesome deal. I think I got this thing around half off, and I've been loving this knife ever since. I was really unsure how this orange handle would be, but overall I really like this color combo, and the knife has been pretty impressive itself. This is one of my absolute favorite knives for field dressing game animals, primarily because it has a full flat grind, and it has a very, very thin full flat grind. A lot like the Nesmic, it does an extremely good job at processing game animals, but I find this one to just be just a little bit better, because the one slight problem you can run into when dressing game animals with the Nesmic is, since it doesn't have a sharpened tip, it's very hard to start a cut with it. So with this one, it of course has an extremely sharp tip, and it is a lot easier to start cuts or to initiate opening up something like the an area to get to the cavity where all the guts are. So that kind of thing I found very easy to do with the ESEE, as well. In addition, like I said, with the other full flat grind, it is very good at cutting up things like mushrooms or different funguses and processing of different natural materials. My one complaint with this knife is the fact that, one, I think it's actually just a little pricey, because you're still only getting $10.95, and that was actually one of the large reasons why I didn't get an ESEE until this like flash deal. I actually would have got like an ESEE4, but they sold all of those out. But anyways, this one I did get. I dislike the fact of the price point. On most normal occasions, you're not going to be able to get it for like half off. If you do get it for half off, it's an extraordinary knife for that price point, but not half off. It's kind of an okay deal. I really do wish it would be overall a cheaper knife, because especially with things like the handle, I mean, you can see there's like practically no G10. It's very thin. I dislike most of the ergonomics on this knife, just because that handle is so thin, and they're just like two pieces of slab G10 with some like stippling in them, and there's really not that much to give you traction or confidence while holding the knife, especially over long-term situations. It is a kind of benefit when carrying it, but overall, I do dislike that part of it. To the Morakniv Eldris. Now, I've called this in other videos essentially the common man's ESEE, and I really like to stick with that because it really is a micro knife, and you'd be getting this knife for a lot of the same reasons that you'd be getting the ESEE. And so if you find yourself liking that kind of micro knife, or really super compact short knives, or if you want to EDC a fixed blade, a lot of the same same reasons you'd get an ESEE Azula, but you don't want to spend as much money as an ESEE Azula because they can be like 50, 60 bucks, and those are just some of the normal ones with handles. They can be rather spendy, but this is a very everyday man or working man kind of more affordable competitor to the ESEE Azula. And so if you find yourself in that kind of range or you like those types of knives, I would highly encourage the Morakniv Eldris. I do personally like those style of knives, so for me the Morakniv Eldris is a very great knife. I actually find myself using it a lot, even in some everyday carry tasks. But overall, I am very impressed with it. The last two knives, and that is the Morakniv Companion and the Cold Steel Roach Belly. These two are very budget options, and they've really been some of my favorite budget options. It may sound funny, but I'm extremely picky when it comes to knives that are under $20. Like, I'm super picky. I don't have, these are really the only two I have. I actually have more companions, but these are the only two like different types of sub $20 knives I have, at least for Bushcraft, and I'm very, like I said, very picky about the ones I do select. I do a lot of research on them because for that price point there's just so many terrible knives. But the Roach Belly by Cold Steel is a very great one. If you want a knife that's more skinning oriented and more traditionally made, this, you know, copies is kind of like a replica of more traditional knives of the 18th century and 19th century. I found it to be a very capable knife for bushcrafting. I was actually pretty surprised at how well it does for things like batoning. I wouldn't do that all the time with it, but it's very capable. And the Companion, I just brought it out because I wanted to show you the complete collection. I'm not even going to talk about it. It's just such a quintessential knife. You guys all know how great they are. So here's my snow-covered collection. It is snowing quite a bit right now. Can't do anything about that, so I apologize if most of the knives are actually covered in snow. That's just Alaska for you. Anyways, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed that. Don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe, and tell me what your thoughts are on any of these knives, or if you guys want to talk about some of your knives that you have, don't forget to leave those in the comment section below. And I'm out.